Copper Sun, Part 7, Chapters 31 and 32. Chapter 31, The Doctor's Choice. The wagon lumbered slowly down the road. Most of the leaves of the trees, Amari noticed, were turning golden and copper with rusty hues. The sun shone brightly over. The wind blew gently from the east, but a storm of turmoil hovered over the small wagon in which they rode. Polly sat with her arms wrapped tightly around her body. Chpt still cried for his mother, burying himself in Amari's arms. Amari, feeling bereft and empty inside, held the child and stared at the thick woods on either side of the road. I'm to be sold once more? Is this the way it will be forever? To be passed from one owner to another like a cow? Afi had constantly talked about her bright spirit and her future, but Amari could see nothing but the darkness. She found she did not have Afi's strength. After an hour or so, Dr. Hoskins, who so far had said nothing at all to the passengers in the back of the wagon, slowly pulled over to the side of the road. The horse snorted and grabbed mouthfuls of soft grass. The doctor was silent for a moment, then he turned around to look at his three passengers. He took a deep breath, then said quietly, I am ashamed to be a human being this morning. I witnessed not just murder last night, but violence and cruelty and vicious hatred. By saying nothing, I feel I am responsible as my so-called friend who pulled the trigger. Amari and Polly exchanged stunned looks. Dr. Hoskins continued, I am just one man. I don't know how to fight everything that is happening around me. I don't understand how one man can own another, and I don't know how to stop it. He looked around at the deep woods and the darkness within them. But I can help the three of you. How, sir? Polly asked immediately. I plan to give you at least a fighting chance. He kept looking around him as if someone would come down the road and discover what he was doing. I have a little money and some food that Lena made up for our journey this morning. He pointed to a small bundle beneath the seat of the wagon. You not take us to town to be sold? Amari asked, her voice hopeful. No, child, I'm not. What do we do, sir? Polly asked. The Ashley River runs parallel to this road, he said, pointing to the west. Find the river and follow it north. You will have to stay hidden during the day and travel only at night. Can you do that? Oh, yes, sir, Polly replied with enthusiasm. You'll have at least a day before they discover you're missing. I'll wait until tomorrow evening before I will be forced to report your escape to Mr. Derby. If I could come up with the money to pay the purchase price for the three of you, I'd do it gladly, he said, but unfortunately, I have no such means. All I can give you is time. Amari frowned as she tried to make sense of the doctor's words. He spoke very fast, and she had to take her time to make sure she understood. How we gonna escape? She asked, still unsure of the doctor's plan. I'm setting you free, the doctor replied. We be free? Amari asked, hardly daring to believe it. The word itself stunned her. The doctor replied, Well, I'm going to try to give you one small chance to be free. It's up to you and to the spirits of hope and possibility. That much of the conversation Amari understood clearly. She thought of Afi and her unfailing faith in the future. We are so grateful for this opportunity, sir, Polly said, her voice breaking. You are saving our lives. This could just as easily destroy your lives, he warned. There will be patrols out and documents posted for your arrest and dogs following your trail. How do we hide from dogs? Amari asked. You can't. Dogs are trained to trace your smell and attack you when they find you. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat the danger. What happened to you when Master Derby know you help us? Amari asked. Me? I'll tell him we were attacked by highwaymen. I'll fake an injury to make it seem real. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Amari stared intently at the kindly, silver-haired doctor. She would never have imagined a white man willing to help her. You gonna tell Teeny her child not get sold? Amari asked as she held Chpt's hand. Of course, but it won't be soon, he warned. Amari breathed a sigh of relief. She couldn't bear to think of Teeny's misery. The doctor looked sadly at the three young people in the wagon. "You're just children," he mused, shaking his head. He reached under the seat and pulled out an old feed sack. From it he took a small bundle of food, a couple of coins, and a flintlock musket. Amari gasped at the sight of the gun. "Use this only to save your life, not for hunting. You do not want to draw attention to yourself." "How will it work?" Amari asked. Polly spoke up quietly. "I know how to use it. My father taught me. You half cock the hammer, pour in the gunpowder, wrap the lead ball, then stuff it into the bear on fire." Amari was impressed. The doctor nodded with approval. "Are you a good shot?" he asked. Polly looked away. "No, sir, not very. My father tried to teach me, but I could not shoot straight." The doctor shook his head. He gave Polly a small pouch that held the ammunition, as well as the sack. "You have enough gunpowder for only one shot. Make it count." "Yes, sir, I will. Thank you, sir." She carefully replaced the gun into the bag and hoisted the sack over her shoulder. "Hurry," the doctor said, glancing around worriedly. "Get out of the wagon and as deeply as you can into the woods." Amari looked up at him and smiled as she and Polly climbed out of the wagon. They both helped Chpt jump up. "Thank you, sir," Amari said. She never thought she'd be thanking a white man. "May God have mercy on all of you," the doctor replied. The wagon disappeared into the distance. The three children stood wordlessly for a moment, watching it, then, realizing their danger, darted into the darkness of the woods. Chapter 32, The Journey Begins. Amari, Polly, and Chpt moved slowly but steadily through the woods, as if they knew where they were going. Although the road had been brightly lit with the sunshine of the morning, the woods were shadowy and dim under the thick canopy of trees. Amari, somehow feeling very much at home among this greenery, led them deeper and deeper until they reached a point where no path was apparent, and the trees and bushes grew so closely together that not even Chpt could squeeze between the thick green growth. "Mina, let's stop for a bit and get our bearings," Polly suggested. Amari nodded in agreement, and they all sat down on the ground and caught their breath. Finches and swallows chirped high above them, but otherwise the forest was surprisingly silent. Polly closed her eyes and leaned against an oak tree. Chpt whispered, "Mina, I gotta pee." Amari looked at the boy fondly. "Go quick, behind that tree." The boy ran and returned shortly to the security of Amari's arms. Amari gave him a reassuring hug, and then she looked at Polly, who sat next to her, scratching the mosquito bites on her arm. "My name be Amari," she informed the two of them. Polly opened her eyes and looked at Amari with a slight frown. "What's wrong with the name they gave you?" she asked. "We're used to it now." Amari took a deep breath of the woodsy air. "Not Mina no more. Amari." She spoke with clarity and certainty. "If you say so," Polly said with a shrug. "I suppose it is a good name for a free woman." "Free," Amari exclaimed in quiet exultation. She had no intention of ever using that slave name again. "I want my mama," Chpt whimpered. He fingered the pouch that hung around his neck. "You be free too, small one," Amari whispered to him. "You make your mama proud, you hear?" The boy just buried his head in Amari's arm. "Which way do we go now, Amari?" Polly asked. "It's so easy to get turned around. I think the river is that way," she said, pointing to her left. "No, river that way," Amari replied, pointing to her right. "I be smelling muddy water." Polly sighed. "How will we ever get to the north if we can't even find the river?" "We not go north. We go south," Amari said defiantly. "But Dr. Hoskins said to follow the river to the north. That's where we have a better chance at freedom," Polly insisted. "He's a doctor. He's got to know what's best for us." "Cato say go south," Amari insisted. "And he also said the streets were paved with gold. I think Cato's story is just an old slave's tale about a place that doesn't even exist." "I believe Cato," Amari said emphatically. Her heart pounded. She had no intention of giving in to this white girl. "He be right about Massa Clay. He be right about Doctor." She crossed her arms across her chest. "But he knew them," Polly insisted. This place he called Fort Most is just a pretend place he's heard of. Like the Promised Land, a place you go when you die. And I don't want to die. Not yet. Her face reddened in anger. We die if we go north, Amari said quietly. You will forever be a slave if we go south, Polly insisted. You won't go north? Go alone, Amari said with the fierceness she hoped she had the courage to back up. Polly inhaled sharply. After a long pause, she replied, We would all die if we split up. Choice up to you. Me and Chpt going south. You come if you want. Amari bent down and picked up the small bundle of food. She hoped that Polly wouldn't go off on her own, but she just knew she had to go south. Slavery's not so bad up north, Polly said slowly. I hear tell that lots of black folk are free up there. I free here. I free now, Amari replied, digging her toe into the dirt. Then, without looking at Polly, she added, You white gal, you not need us. She knew that Polly could make it alone and would certainly find refuge quicker without the presence of 2 runaway slaves. I think we need each other, Polly said with quiet resolution. Amari started to reply, but a noise from behind them made her pause. A twig broke, then another. Amari held Chpt tightly and held her breath. None of them moved. Someone was approaching. She motioned for them to be absolutely silent. Suddenly, emerging triumphantly from the trees, lunged a dirty and bird-covered hush puppy. The dog rushed to Chpt, licking his face and yelping with obvious joy. Hush puppy! The boy exclaimed with happiness as he hugged his dog. You found me! The dog flopped down at the boy's feet and began to lick them too. Perhaps this was a sign of good fortune for their journey, Amari thought, and Polly must have thought the same thing because she looked at Amari and smiled. Do you truly believe there is a place called Fort Most? Polly asked her. Amari nodded. I feel it. Here, she said, pointing to her heart. It be place where, if you get there, you be free inside and outside. I hope Cato is right, Polly said slowly, but going south makes no sense to me. Patrols be looking north, Amari reminded her. How will we ever find our way to a place we are not even sure exists? Polly asked. Spirits will lead us. I don't believe in all that spirit talk, Polly said quietly, and it is such a long way. Long walk anyhow, Amari replied, and then she asked, You not trust Amari? Polly looked at her for several moments as if she were weighing her decision. Well, she said finally, we should get started. Amari nodded in approval. No talk, she reminded Chpt. We must move quiet, like snakes. Silent snakes? The boy whispered back. The 3 of them picked their way through the forest for the rest of the afternoon, stopping only to drink from the streams they crossed. Amari led them slowly and carefully through a maze of oak and elm and maple trees. Rabbits darted across their path, and deer looked at them with large, surprised eyes, but no voices followed them, and no people approached. The dog, as if he knew silence was important, did not bark once. For the first time since her capture in Africa, Amari relaxed. Even though her feet were bare and the ground was covered with sticks and pine needles, she felt no pain, for this walk was leading her, perhaps, to that destiny that Afi kept speaking of. As dusk approached, Amari signaled for them to stop. River be very close, she whispered. We follow water in dark time. Chpt tired, the boy whined quietly. I want to go back to my mama. He rubbed his eyes and sat down with a thud. I don't want to walk no more. Amari knew she had to let him rest. We stop here, she said. Sleep some, for we walk much soon. She gave him a small piece of meat from Lena's bundle, and he promptly fell off to sleep, his head resting on Hush Puppy. The girls could see the river in the distance and smell its earthy, wet shoreline as they hid in the darkness of the trees. Amari could hear laughter of men on boats and slow, sad chants of slaves working in the rice fields nearby, finishing up their labors for the day. We got to leave river, Amari whispered to Polly. Why? Polly asked. I thought the plan was to follow the river. All rivers run to sea, Amari explained, remembering what Cato had said. We got to go by land. And how will we know which way is which? Polly asked, looking perplexed. Moss grow on north sides of trees, Amari explained, trying to remember exactly what Teeny had once told her. So we follow other side of tree. We can't see moss at night, Polly said reasonably. Stars lead us, Amari replied with confidence. Polly shook her head, but she stopped arguing. The two girls rested their heads gratefully on twin tree trunks, but only for a short time. Amari knew they needed to travel in the safety of darkness. Tidbit fussed when she awakened him, but he soon rubbed his little eyes bravely and marched with them into the darkness without much complaint. Fireflies blinked in the thick saw grass near the edge of the river. Bullfrogs erupted with tuneless burps. Mosquitoes swarmed in full force, and the three travelers swatted them constantly, their arms and bodies becoming covered with itching bites. A nightingale called far in the distance. Amari lifted her head to the night sky. Bright stars decorated the darkness above, and she wondered if they were the same stars that had winked at her so far away in her homeland.